And we are recording. And let's record down here as well. And I'm going to play a little music. Here we go. It's time for Clubhouse Chatter. Here's Norm Ordez.
Well, thank you, Brian. You know, that music kind of reminds me of Shaft a little bit. The way it starts out, the old 70s show Shaft. So our second guest of the morning is former general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he's been on the show a handful of times, and that is Mr. Fred Clare. Mr. Clare, how you doing?
Good, Norm. Good to be with you.
Good. And so you and I chatted a little bit last night about what we were going to talk about, and we were going to talk about, you brought up Ariball.com, about the analytical part of your job. And so let's touch on where you guys are going with that.
Very good, Norm. Your listeners can find out a little bit more by going to the website www.ariball.com. And the man behind the analytics is a longtime friend, associate of mine by the name of Ari Kaplan. And I first met Ari, I guess it's hard to believe, but it was 25 years ago when he was a freshman at Caltech. And, of course, Caltech is one of the most prestigious universities in the country, if not the world. And Ari was a young man with an interest in baseball. He went on to a lot of success in the business world, in the world of technology. But his passion has always been baseball. And so Ari and I formed a partnership 8 years ago to advance the analytics of Ariball. And Norm, as you know, so much of the game today is based on analytics and the use of the information. And as a general manager, I was a big believer in information. And when you're looking for information, you're looking to the best sources. You're looking to your manager, to your coaches, to your scouts, to your player development people. But along with that, you also want to get the best information that you can receive and that you can quantify. And analytics, as we know, is a way to do that. So that's the basic background to the involvement with Ariball. And we have some exciting things happening in the company. And also, very frankly, there's a lot of interest today, Norm, as you know, in the whole world of fantasy sports.
Yep.
And the fans and those participating in fantasy sports, what they're looking for is information. What they're looking for is information that they can rely on. So that's the background, and it's a very exciting time for those of us involved with Ariball, and I think that there are a lot of good things happening, and I expect in the very near future that we'll have an announcement or two that will show the advancements that we're making.
Yeah, the whole analytical scene is crazy. You know, 5 years ago, you know, you started using WHIP and stuff, and it's crazy on where it is today. I was talking with a couple of scouts actually, at the Eugene Emeralds game on Friday night. And one of them been scout for 16 years now, and so I was talking to him about the analytics part of the game. You know, some of those older scouts, they're kind of on the edge, on the border, whether they like it or not. But the young scout, there was a younger scout who's probably been doing it for a few years. He was all about it, and so they started explaining to me on how their teams, major league teams, are using it, and it's quite interesting.
Well, I'll tell you a story, Norm, that happened, a conversation that I had just this week that really brings it totally into focus. I don't want to name names or teams because it's not fair to the participants, and I wouldn't do that because this was a private conversation. But I had a conversation with a very experienced uniformed baseball personnel, and he's with a major league organization at the minor league level, and he was working with one of his pitchers. And this guy is an excellent, excellent pitching coach. And he was trying to get this pitcher, showing him how he could improve his breaking ball, how he could improve his curveball. And so the person told me, he said, this is the most amazing thing, Fred. He said that we worked with him, and when he went out in his last game, his curveball was absolutely outstanding. He said the next morning, I got a phone call from our analytical department based at their home stadium. And he said, do you know that the spin rate on that pitcher who pitched for us last night, the spin rate was improved by like 20%? So it puts it into sheer focus. Here's a veteran instructor giving help to a young player. And what happened in that game immediately was tracked by the analytical department of that team that didn't, have eyeballs on him to see him, from the home base. So it brings it into full focus, Norm, as far as what is happening. And that's really what you're looking for in terms of information. How do we help our team? How do we help our young players get better? And how do we quantify improvement? Those all become very important things.
Absolutely. I notice, a lot of your ballparks now, they've got cameras set up, and so it's like I don't know what's the camera system that they use on MLB TV now.
Sport Vision.
Yes, Sports Vision, and so it like tracks like the velocity off the bat, the distance, the trajectory. It's really fascinating. I know that here in Oregon at Salem Kaiser Stadium, they've installed cameras to do that as well, and it goes to the Giants to where there's so much information that it just blows your mind. And
that's exactly right. And of course, Sport Vision is in all of the major league parks. And the other thing that's interesting, Norm, this is no longer at the major league level. There are now any number of collegiate ballparks. The top college programs in the country have the Sport Division cameras located in their stadiums. And the other thing that's happening in this area, it's not just one company with the ability to do this. There are several companies in the business now of being able to track and collect the data. And so that's what you're operating from. But the data doesn't mean anything unless you can build the programs to really be able to interpret and use in a meaningful way for instruction, for scouting, for evaluation. And that is where our company and where my partner, who is so wonderful and skilled in the area of technology, Ari Kaplan, has added so much to the programs, and he has a passion for this. Ari, a very accomplished guy, has been working on the programs for more than 20 years, and so we feel that we have the best in the game, and so it's an exciting opportunity for our company.
Yeah, I've chatted with Ari a couple of times. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. And we have talked. I mean, we talked about it. It was probably over a year ago. We were talking about the fantasy sports part of it, because I myself play fantasy baseball. I've got a couple of teams, and he's offered up some help, and I haven't taken him up on it yet. But I mean, definitely would love to chat with him again about it. So let's so that's ariball.com. So check that out. It's really a fascinating. You could sign up for a newsletter that you get, and so he'll break down like Cole Hamels no-hitter the other day. He'll break that down. I mean, it's just it blows your mind on how fascinating it is. It's really pretty cool. So let's change speeds a little bit. So we just had the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies on Sunday. And, man, I've never been to Cooperstown. That is on my list. I want to make it to Cooperstown one of these days to check out.
It's a wonderful, wonderful place.
And that's what everybody says. Every year I record it and I watch it. And we had a former Dodger, Pedro Martinez, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yes, he was, Norm, and it was a great class, a wonderful class with Craig Biggio, with John Smoltz, with Randy Johnson, and with Pedro. And there is no question but that Pedro stole the show, if you would, with all due respect to all that took place. Pedro's spirit and his enthusiasm and his love of his country. But I'll tell you something, Norm. Of all the things that were said, there was a story in the New York Times, a quote from Pedro that I think is the most meaningful quote that was said at the Hall of Fame. And you can look at the Monday edition of the New York Times on the Hall of Fame story. In fact, the headline is Martinez delivery at Hall, moving with light touch. These were the words of Pedro, quoting him directly. Don't look at me as numbers, as baseball, as achievements, said Martinez. I'd like you to see me as a sign of hope for a third world country, for Latin America, someone you can look up to and say, I'm proud of you. And then when he finished, and the story reports, Martinez called Juan Marichal from his seat on the stage and unfolded a Dominican flag. They held it aloft, and the band erupted anew. The point of all that, Norm, is that Pedro, what he achieved, the road that he traveled, and not only the road that he traveled, but the manner in which he did it, and what he did and what he wanted to do and what he accomplished for his country is very, very meaningful. And having been with the Dodgers when we established the academy in the Dominican Republic, and I recall being there on the day that we had the grand opening and the work of Ralph Avila. And when you can use baseball to give hope to young players, and as we know, Norm, only a few make it, but they really can set a standard in how they conduct themselves. So I say that for Pedro, it was a tremendous career and a tremendous day for him and an accomplishment, as it was also, of course, for Craig Biggio, for John Smoltz, and Randy Johnson. A tremendous, tremendous Hall of Fame class.
It was. And, baseball, it's crazy on how different baseball is, like here in America and like in the Dominican Republic. I mean, it seems like there's more pride. It's a small, third world country, and, watching them speak, man, I mean, it was amazing. And I watched that, that quote that you shared, and it was 30 years that Juan Marichal was voted into the Hall of Fame, and so 30 years between Dominican pitchers.
Yes.
That's
and Norm, as a side story to that, you may or may not know this or remember it. Juan Marichal ended his career with the Dodgers.
Right.
And I can recall the day Al Campanis was our general manager, and this was early. It was in April, as I recall. And we had signed Juan in spring training. And Juan had called Al Campanis and said, Mr. Campanis, can I come in and see you? So Al called over to me and he said, Fred, Juan Marichal is coming in. And he said, I'd like to have you in my office with me when Juan comes in. He said, I'm not sure what he wants to talk about, but it would be good that if you were here. And I said, sure, Al, I'd be happy to be there. I'll never forget this, Norm. Juan Marichal walked in. He had a contract because the season had started that was guaranteed. And his words were, Mr. Campanis, Fred, he said, I want to tell you something. He said, I no longer can pitch to the ability that I think that I need to pitch. And I don't think it's fair for you to be paying me when I can't deliver to my own expectations. And so here was Juan Marichal, who certainly could have held on for the year, and fulfilled the contract, his pride wasn't going to let him do that. And I never forgot that. And Juan is a tremendous person. And, of course, he went through an experience with the Dodgers and with Don Roseborough. That was a very emotional and sad experience for all of baseball. But John Roseborough and Juan made amends. The Dodgers and Juan made amends, and so it's the road you traveled, Norm, and the road for Juan, the road for Pedro. It was great to see the two of them together, and hopefully that will ignite the spirit and the hopes of other young players in the Dominican and throughout the world.
Wow, that's a great story. So I know you're a busy man. I know you're only on for 15 minutes or so. Do you have time to quickly brief us on what's going on with Baseball New Zealand?
Happy to. A lot of progress being made, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be an advisor to Baseball New Zealand, and I've worked with the New Zealand group and Ryan Flynn, the leader of the group, for a number of years. And again, it's the growth of the game, Norm. So whether it's the Dominican, whether it's New Zealand, wherever it is, it's exciting for me to see baseball grow on an international level, to see more young people participating, to see the game growing. But New Zealand has made great strides. We had a great thing happen this winter. I had reached out to an old friend, Ron Renicky, who at that time was the manager of the Milwaukee team, and Ron, the Brewers. And Ron agreed to go this past off season to New Zealand to give instruction, to help the young players. And he was very successful. Unfortunately, as we know, the Brewers let Ron go. But he will be back with the New Zealand team as they prepare for the World competition. So New Zealand is a country of great athletes.
Right.
And the youngsters there simply have not been exposed to the game of baseball. I can recall years ago, 25 years ago or more, I made a trip to Australia and was interested in seeing baseball grow in Australia and sent several of our coaches to Australia to help grow the game. And we've seen the results of that as far as the players now who are coming out of Australia have come out of Australia to the major leagues, and we will now see players come out of New Zealand.
That's a great thing, and that's one of my big deals is I want to see baseball grow on the international level, and I'm associated with baseball in Israel, and so I've interviewed half the national team. I've gotten to know some of the guys. In fact, Israel beat Poland today in Pool B for the right to go to World Baseball Classic. They beat them 8-6 over in Austria, and so it's exciting. It really is exciting. It is, Norm, and the growth of the game, and not just international. I visited just a week or so ago with a man who has done a great deal for baseball in the United States and specifically in the inner cities. And that was John Young, who started RBI, reviving baseball in the inner cities. I was on John's first board of directors when RBI started in Los Angeles. It has now grown to a national event. And so it's not just the Dominican, and it's not just New Zealand. Certainly, our focus needs to be very much on baseball in the United States, and particularly, Norm, in the inner cities, where young people may not have the chance to be exposed to the game, to learn from the game. And so South Central Los Angeles, like a lot of areas of major cities, we need to pay attention. We need to give those kids an opportunity, those young people an opportunity and expose them to the game. So there's a lot that needs to be done more because we have to continue to grow the game. Absolutely. Once again, Mr. Fred Clare on with us. Mr. Clare, thank you for taking time in your day to chat with us today.
Norm, good to be with you as always. Take good care, and we're going to have a exciting second half and stretch drive to the baseball season, so I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. Once again, it's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Take care.
All right. So once again, Mr. Fred Clare, former GM of the LA Dodgers. You know, he's right. You know, internationally, you know, we need to get a hold of Mr. Young with the RBI program. That'd be a great interview as well.
Be really cool, and you know, things are happening, and you know, baseball's in a good spot right now.
Baseball's in a very good spot. I was chatting with a buddy of mine, and you know, we're talking about where baseball is today. You know, you got your handful of the veterans, and now you got the young players. You know, the Mike Trouts, the Manny Machados, who I love Manny Machado. You know, a lot of people don't like him, but I do, you know, and it's in a great place, you know. I mean, Joey Gallo, who we saw, you know, when he was with Spokane. And, I mean, that guy can hit. Baseball is in a good spot. We'll be talking with, tomorrow, I'll be talking with a good friend of mine, Pat Dillon, who is the voice of the Everett Aqua Sox, and we'll be talking about players who have came through the Northwest League. You know, and I mean, just right off the top of my head, just throw out a few names. You know, you had Piazza back in the late 80s.
Junior.
You know, Ken Griffey Jr., you know.
Canseco.
Mike Zanino.
McGuire.
It's crazy on the talent that has come through the Northwest
Ozzie
League. Ozzie Smith. So, all right. So, we are sponsored by Baseballism.com. So I am wearing the Flagman hat and the Flagman shirt today. Check them out. Baseballism.com. Tell them Norm from Clubhouse Chatter sent you. They might even be able to, might even give you a little bit of a discount. I don't know. Base by Pros. Mitch Canham up there in Washington. Basebypros.com. BaseballDudes.com. To be the best, you must train like the best. Check out Chris Gazelle at BaseballDudes.com. And Mark Canham, Mitch Canham's dad, does our shirts for 9 Inning Know-It-All. Does a great job, and he's a heck of a baseball fan and just a great guy. As always, we stream live every week on YamhillToday.com. And if you're looking to sponsor, you know what? Shoot me an email, normbo18@gmail.com. We'll talk about it. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be financial. It could be whatever. You know, maybe you want me to wear your hat. So you can find us at Twitter on Clubhouse Chatter, 1T. Facebook, Clubhouse Chatter with Norm. We're also on YouTube. We're also now on iTunes, Clubhouse Chatter. Check us out, and our email is clubhousechatter18@gmail.com. I'm Norm. That is my Robin, Brian, my sidekick, and we will be back at 11:30 with a guy named Fritz Peterson, who is a former pitcher with the New York Yankees, and he might tell us a story of something that you don't want to miss out on. We'll be back. Thank you.